Well, I want to move on to the biggest story in Australia this week, which was the shock parting of ways between the king of breakfast TV, Karl Stefanovic, and of course the Nine Network, who are our former partners, now a part of Tapped, obviously, which has been sold by Nine. Karl, of course, published and retracted an interview with UK firebrand Tommy Robinson, real name Stephen Yaxley Lennon. Shortly after it was removed, the video was uploaded by Pauline Hanson's YouTube account and promptly got 167,000 downloads. Apparently, one of Robinson's biggest crimes was calling outgoing British PM Keir Starmer a wanker, which appears to be the sentiment of about 98% of Britons. So I'm not sure that was in itself a great reason. After the separation deal was announced, Stefanovic filmed an interview for his fans, appears to be from the UK or somewhere in Europe, where he noted the public deserves to hear perspectives. Freedom of speech here and around the world is what this show is about. You don't have to listen to my show. You have the power. You are smart enough to make up your own mind. Stefanovic clearly sensed the shifting winds of the Australian political spectrum. He's interviewed Pauline Hanson 3 times, Barnaby Joyce 4 times, and of course Kyle Sandilands, as well as other right-wing figures, Holly Valance and Pete Evans. But he also conducted a friendly interview with, of course, left-wing Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Carl's podcast has gotten huge downloads. It is actually, I think, the #1 podcast in Australia. And if it wasn't yesterday, it certainly is today. The download, the media, the free earned, we would call earned media, has gotten the last week has been literally incredible. Interesting. Stefanovic historically has been relatively progressive politically. He loudly advocated for Indigenous rights. He once famously wore the same suit for a year to show the double standard between men and women hosts. And a former Today Show producer told the AFR that he thinks Karl is simply motivated by money. He's a chameleon. I reckon he thinks the quickest way home is to be right wing. And one small tidbit, you may have seen Rear Window reported that Stefanovic only owns 45% of the venture. The remainder is held by a guy called Jason Ibrahim, whose wife is a good friend of Karl's wife, Jasmine, and the celebrity accountant and Anthony Bell, who's done Karl's sort of business management, is 10% holder. So this is a huge story, Adir. Obviously, we're podcasters, not quite the same league as Karl, but what are your views on all this mess?
So I find the whole thing it's a sign of the times, right? Which is so I think these are the 2 most interesting parts of the story. I was trying to think about which bits of these are interesting because, like, this has been, turned over 150 different ways by the media, but these are the 2 interesting bits. One is, why did Karl do it? And 2, the question is, why did Nine do it? Because I think there's deeper things going on here than meet the eye. Would you agree it was completely, I wouldn't say predictable, but likely, Karl would have understood if he does this interview, there's a decent chance that it's going to cause upheaval at Nine. Because, like, he interviewed Pauline Hanson, and he's obviously close to Pauline Hanson in some way, but she's a mainstream Australian political figure now. Tommy Robinson, and I know less than you about Tommy Robinson. And also, it seems to me, without going into too much detail about him, he's been on a bit of a journey from a particular extreme right guy to a different kind of far right guy now. And
I'm not sure he's far right anymore. I think he's probably mid-right now. There's a lot more further right than Tommy.
Yeah, so I haven't looked into it a lot, but there's some weird stuff about him that doesn't quite fit into like what you might consider like these far right racist Nazis.
Well, he's certainly a friend of the Jews now, so I think calling him a Nazi is wrong.
It's so weird. I mean, it's so weird. So I don't want to defend him because a lot of people message me very unhappy about the interview. And also I don't really know what I'm talking about because I don't spend a lot of time reading about this guy. So I don't want to defend or attack or whatever. But I want to say this. Do you think Karl would have realised there's a pretty good chance there's going to be some drama at Nine if I do this interview? Yes or no?
I don't think he expected the reaction it got. I think that was a surprise. But sort of, you had 2 questions there. I think the inevitably... This is the nature of broadcast television in the last decade, that it simply makes less money than it used to. And we saw, and this is obviously radio, but we saw the Kyle and Jackie O play out in really similar fashion, obviously settled now. We certainly Kyle's settled.
It's half settled, right? Half settled.
But I think the problem is some of these really highly, and Karl wasn't in the Kyle league. Karl was, I think, has been speculated beyond $3 million a year. I think that was actually way over. I think Karl was on probably more like 1.5. So it was a much lower salary than Kyle, but it was still quite a large salary. And I think what's happening is all the TV stations, all the linear broadcasters, radio, TV, have been cutting star salaries, which is a weird concept. Like, imagine if you went to your CTO and said, you know what, it's been a tough year, I'm going to cut your salary. You'd be laughed out of the building. Like, no one else can get away with cutting salaries other than these media entertainment businesses, which is in itself a bit weird.
You would say also that Karl did not have the audience pull that Kyle has. Like, the thing about Kyle is like the equivalent to putting an A-lister in a movie and then bringing their audience with them. A lot more people hate Kyle and hate most A-list celebrities, but he did have this very big audience pull. I don't know how big it is still now. I actually don't know, but that he dragged with him. Karl was more of a everyone knows him, but I think if he would have just done a podcast more akin to his breakfast show personality, it may not have been a massive podcast.
No, it wouldn't have been at all. And don't forget, Nine's been smashed by Sunrise for the last decade or more in the morning. So I think your sort of diagnosis feels right. So my thinking is Karl was on sort of 1.5 going down. This is going to drop again. 9. I think it was a lot more amicable than potentially the press has indicated.
I agree with you. His contract was coming to an end, by the way. This was everyone agreed this was the last year of his contract.
So ultimately, Karl had simply got paid out what he would have been paid anyway. It's a great result. He's got this millions and millions of dollars of free publicity. Like, this is literally $10 million to $20 million of free publicity he's had. This is money can buy it, but money wouldn't buy it because it'd be too expensive. You can't buy this kind of publicity. He's got the number one podcast in the country.
No, I'm not sure money can buy this publicity. Like, money can buy you talking about your own stuff. It can't buy other people talking about your own stuff because they think it's good for them to talk about it. Right?
And like, to the point for the anonymous person who said Karl's just a chameleon, I think Karl has really smartly picked up on that rightward trend. The over to Windows shifted. You can see the One Nation support is off the charts now. It's the number one most popular party in the country. And Karl's I think it's just a really savvy guy who's picked this up and he's created the number one podcast in Australia in the space of 4 months. And this is let's say he was on $1.5 million a year, going to potentially $1 million or zero because it was always going to end soon. He's got a podcast business probably worth 20, 30 million bucks today. Could be worth $100 million bucks. Like, I think this is a genius business move by him. I think he's played it absolutely, whether it was intended or not, he's played it brilliantly. I think Nine have probably gotten away with it pretty well as well. This is, to me, a great win-win. And like, the actual substance, the whole Tommy Robinson interview, I didn't find it overly controversial at all. Like, he's interviewed Pauline and Barnaby and all these other guys, that Holly, who's probably just as controversial, which is an Australian as well. Like, I find it a bit strange. There was the vaccine stuff that I think he probably offended a few people on when he had Pete Evans on the show.
I read about that, but I didn't hear it. This is what I read, that he said, which I didn't, by the way, I didn't like what I read. So I'm going to give you a bit of the more negative view than you've expressed. But what I read is that he said that he regretted pushing the vaccines on people so hard during COVID. I didn't listen to it. I mean, I don't like people that say it's all about the context, but I feel like that might all be about the context and the tone, and I don't know what the context was and the tone of him saying those things.
Well, I regret that. I regret we offered a promotion at Luxury Escapes with News Corp, and I think both us and News Corp regret being so pro-vaccine with what we know now. I think we know now that what we know is that vaccine has probably killed people because now people are much more vaccine skeptical when they should be taking vaccines. So that's probably the biggest downfall of that COVID vaccine, is that it's damaged people taking, whether it's measles, mumps, rubella, whether it's the ovarian cancer vaccine, which people 100% should be taking because it saves lives. This vaccine that no one under the age of 60 really needed has damaged the vaccine brand is the problem. So I think that's how it should be expressed.
I agree with you about the damage of the brand, but I just want to say this about your advocacy at the time. You should not feel bad about that at all, because you were not in the wrong. You were in the right, saying to people, the evidence at the time is it will slow the spread of this disease, at least. You were not the one in the wrong. The people that were in the wrong were scientists and doctors who misrepresented what they actually knew, which was much more limited, and said that this vaccine was as good as other vaccines, like the MMR vaccine that you just spoke about, which effectively means when you take those vaccines, you don't get the disease. And we do not know that about this vaccine, and it was portrayed as if that was the case. I think it was right to advocate for it. I think it was wrong to misrepresent it without the knowledge at the time, as if we knew that this was a silver bullet drug. So anyway, that's a bit of a digression, but and that's why I say to you, I think it really depends on the context in which he says these things. I'll say this: I'm not a Pauline Hanson supporter. Okay, like, she has not convinced me. I definitely don't think she would be a good Prime Minister of Australia. She has not convinced me.
Better or worse than the current Prime Minister?
I think if you would have asked me this 6 months ago, I would have said you can't compare. Like, I might disagree with this government, but they're still a trustworthy government. I think this government is totally untrustworthy today, and you can't believe a word that they say. And I think at heart, they might have enough people in there who are real socialists, not capitalists, that it would be dangerous if they got re-elected. But I didn't feel it 6 months ago at all.
No, I think most people thought the same, and that's why they were voting in a landslide.
I just wanted to get rid of the Minister for Anti-Semitism, Penny Wong. I wanted to get rid of her because of those issues that were going on, but I didn't think this was a dangerous government at all. And I'm not sure I'd still call them dangerous given some of the other stuff that's going on globally. But yeah, like, the gap between who you trust to run the country has narrowed dramatically in the last few months, not just because of the policy, but because of the way in which the policy was run and the dismissive nature that that the politicians have had to people that disagree with them. And also the hypocrisy, to me, is overwhelming. Like, I want to bring Tony Burke onto the podcast just to ask him one question, which is, will you commit on this podcast to not claiming negative gearing on your 6 investment properties, given you've stopped young people with no properties from ever being able to use it? Because if you believe it's right to wipe out negative gearing, then walk the talk, and you should not claim negative gearing on your properties. And I think, obviously,
I'm going to suggest it's probably not a huge chance he's going to come on, but we'll try.
It's not a great pitch for him to come on, right? His media team, if they listen to this podcast, which feels unlikely because I think this would not be within the echo chamber that they're keen on.
You never know.
Like, you never know. That's true. But after hearing my pitch there, I think his media advisors would be. It's not the greatest. Basically, we would give him a very fair run here, but also we would ask him, some pretty pointed questions in a polite way. So I want to say the negative on Karl, because you said all these positives. But I do agree with you. Like, whatever he's done with this podcast is a genius move. And I agree with this part of what you're saying, which is essentially he's got 1 year where he can go and leverage the megaphone of Channel 9 to go and build his podcast. And so he's gone hell for leather to take advantage of that. That's a very smart move. My point is this: I don't really know what he believes. Does he believe the Pauline Hanson view of the world? I hope so, because then that would mean that at least he is morally and ethically consistent with his own beliefs. And maybe I could disagree with him on some of those points, but I would respect him for having clear views that he was prepared to stand by, which is quite rare now. I think that whereas on the flip side, if the reason he's doing this is just to ride a wave and he just wants to milk it, then I think that that's no different to an influencer, to be perfectly honest with you. And I've got much less respect for that. I hope he believes the things that he's advocating. And I think that he basically felt that he had to use Nine's megaphone, as much as possible. And there was a pretty decent chance at some point he might part ways with them earlier, but there was not really any downside risk for him on that. And I think Nine, like ARN, would have been pretty happy to get rid of a future liability that was going to be just too expensive for them.